had Liz Leonard.
I think having corporate locations is really important, especially if you're still growing, right? Being a young emerging brand, having a corporate location and having been open for many, many years. So you've got a proven system and the model's there. It's the foundation that needs to be built and worked out, all the different kinks in your system. Having obviously people to talk to for validation is really, really important. You do need to validate the business that you're buying. It's almost like try it before you buy it and make sure that the training went the way it's supposed to go. The support that you're getting from the franchisees, the coaching, those are just kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of what people are looking at. You have to look under the hood too, right? Sales, marketing, operations, accounting. There's probably a few I left out. We need to make sure that those are all running and that they're strong systems because you're going to adopt those systems.